Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Will. Today we're going to be looking at 10 cultural differences between the UK and the Philippines. In the past few years I've been to the Philippines a number of times, and if you add up all the times I've been there over a year, and in that time I've noticed some big differences culturally between there and the UK, as you would probably expect. Probably a lot of these cultural differences are relatable with Europe and North America versus Asia, or the West versus the East. But I can only accurately compare the UK with the Philippines, since they're the only two places I've spent a long time in, even if I have visited other countries as well. The first cultural difference we're going to be looking at is how elders are treated. In the Philippines, younger people have to bless their elders and they have to address them with po and opo, and even if someone's slightly older than them, they'll call them ate or kuya. In the UK, we don't have anything like this, and we're kind of all just treated the same, and we don't really treat elders that differently. The only difference I can really think of would be if we're in public transport and then all the seats were being used up, and then sometimes if a senior citizen would walk in, a younger person would offer them a seat, but a lot of times now that doesn't even happen that much anymore, which is quite sad. But in the Philippines, elders are always treated a lot differently and with a lot of respect. The second cultural difference is in the Philippines, everyone seems to have a crush, and they're always asking each other, who's your crush? Or do you have a crush? But in the UK, we never really use this word, and if we would use it, it's only really used by young children. But in the Philippines, everyone seems to ask each other if they have a crush. And even if you're married or if you have a boyfriend, people just ask as like a joke, who's your crush? And they'll joke that that person is their crush, but yeah, we don't really have this at all in the UK. The next cultural difference is the sports. In the Philippines, the sports there that they're into are really influenced by America. I think basketball is the biggest sport there, the most popular sport. Whereas in the UK, we're really into football, and then we have other sports as well. A lot that were invented in this country, like rugby and cricket. And then we're also into motorsport as well. Formula 1's really popular in my country. But the biggest by far is football. But in the Philippines, football hasn't really caught on that much, even though a lot of countries around the Philippines, like Indonesia and Malaysia, they're now really into football, but it still hasn't really spread as much to the Philippines. They're also into boxing a lot in the Philippines, and a lot of Filipinos even consider beauty pageants as one of their main sports, although I don't think anyone here in the UK would really consider that a sport. And they often say in the Philippines the three Bs: beauty pageants, boxing and basketball. The next cultural difference we're going to be looking at is being on time versus Filipino time. Filipinos seem to have a really relaxed culture where they don't seem to care too much about being on time, or they don't rush that much. They always take their time getting up in the morning, or if they have a planned schedule, they won't always stick to that time exactly. In the UK, we kind of have to be on time, and it's rude if we're even 5 minutes late to a scheduled meeting. But in the Philippines, it doesn't seem to matter too much. If someone plans something with their friends, they'll both usually turn up an hour later than they said. But in the UK, we kind of have to be on time because we're brought up to be that way. The fifth cultural difference we're going to be looking at is family closeness. In the Philippines, families are really close, and it's really common for them to stay together and for children to live with their parents until they get married. In the UK, families, we often still have good relationships with our parents and with our families, but we usually move away from our parents. And if you look at the global index of statistics of how young and old people are that move out from their parents, in Europe and North America, it's usually quite young, the average age of moving out, whereas in Asia, and especially the Philippines, they're usually quite old, and they usually only move out when they get married. Which is a lot more practical, because then you can save money, and even if you are paying rent, at least you're paying the rent to your family and supporting your own family. Another cultural difference is the dancing culture that they have in the Philippines. It's really common if you're in a public area, you'll just see people dancing outside. Even if you're in a shopping mall, sometimes the staff will be dancing outside the shop. And that is really unheard of in the UK. We don't really dance that much, and there wouldn't really be people dancing in public or outside of shops. And most of the time, I think a lot of English people don't really know how to dance, and we're a lot more stiff, whereas I swear in the Philippines, everyone can just dance naturally. Another cultural difference is karaoke. And there's a lot of debate whether karaoke was invented in the Philippines or Japan. And even if it was invented in Japan, it was made popular in the Philippines and then spread to the rest of the world. But even though it has spread to the rest of the world, it's not really that common, and we won't really have that many karaoke nights. But in the Philippines, at least in the provinces, in every village, every night there's at least one family that's doing karaoke with their friends all the time, every night. So if you live in a province, you won't really get a break from karaoke. There'll be at least one person in your area singing karaoke every night. In the UK, we often have karaoke pub nights, where in traditional British pubs that we have all around the country, where people often socialise after work, there'll often be one day a week where we have a karaoke night, but it's not that common, and it's really rare for people to do karaoke in their own houses. But in the Philippines, any occasion, they'll be doing karaoke. The next cultural difference we're going to be looking at is the community closeness. Now, this is especially relatable for the provinces in the Philippines, where houses are all open to each other, whereas in the UK, literally every house is fenced off to the neighbouring house. But in the Philippines, at least in the provinces and in the villages inside provinces, usually the doors are always open and neighbours just go into each other's houses whenever they feel like it, and it seems like every house is open to anyone. But it seems in the UK we're a lot more private and prefer our own space, and we don't really interact that much with our neighbours. But in the Philippines, everything seems to be everyone's business. The ninth cultural difference is pointing. In the UK and in basically the rest of the world, we all point with our fingers. But in the Philippines, they point with their lips, which is probably a bit more practical, because if you're using both hands and someone asks you where something is, you can just point with your lips. But in the UK, we wouldn't really understand that at all. And it took me a while to get used to, because it looks like someone wants to kiss you or something, but no, it's just a way of them pointing. The last cultural difference we're going to be looking at are the beauty standards, and the beauty standards seems to be a lot different in both countries. In Europe and basically the whole of the West, we want to make ourselves darker, whereas in the Philippines and pretty much the whole of Asia, people always want to be lighter. And it seems like no one's happy, because in Europe, most people, or at least people with European heritage, are naturally light, whereas in the Philippines, most people are naturally dark. And it seems like we want to be the opposite to what we actually are. And we have a lot of fake tan products in the UK, which actually just make people orange, or we even have tanning machines where people go in these machines that give them a tan and make them darker, but then it can actually be a bit dangerous because it can give you skin cancer. Whereas in the Philippines, it's a complete opposite. People even have injections there to make themselves lighter, and nearly all skin products are designed to make you whiter in the Philippines, even soap. And this does annoy me, because it just seems like no one's happy with who they are. It's a shame we can't all just be happy with being our own natural colours. At the same time, I do get not wanting to be in the sun too long, because you don't want to get burnt or you don't want to get any problems with your skin. And then vice versa, it's actually healthy to be in the sun a bit. If you don't get any sun at all and you just stay completely white, that's not healthy as well. So it should actually be an in-between. You should have some sun, but not too much. So there you have it, those were 10 cultural differences between the UK and the Philippines. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you can think of any more examples, if you can think of any more cultural differences. And subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much. Goodbye.